What's going on, guys? UFC Critic back here. Hope you guys all enjoyed UFC 70, what was it, 79 or 78? 79 with Vanderlei Silva versus Chuck Liddell. That was awesome. Just an exciting night of fights. Well, the first two that we saw weren't too great, but the Chuck Wandy was everything and more that we could hope for it to be, whether you were rooting for Vanderlei or you were rooting for Chuck. It was exciting, and you could cut the tension with a knife, and just watching on TV you could tell that. So that was pretty exciting. GSP versus Matt Hughes, what are you going to do? I think we all pretty much expected that. Some people, said that Hughes would win. I think they were kind of using their heart instead of their heads. But why I'm making this video, I'm going to make a prediction video for UFC 80 in the next few days. Why I'm making this video is it's in regards to the Kimbo Slice Tank Abbott fight by EliteXC. I'm really disappointed in EliteXC. I think it's important for these smaller MMA organizations to promote the sport and to make some money, no doubt. But I think that they're doing it in a disrespectful way to the sport, which has worked so hard to get away from this type of thing. Firstly, Kimbo's a guy who's beaten two guys in MMA, Bo Cantrell, who was 10-10 against very inferior competition, who he just ran through, and who else did he fight? Ray Mercer, who's a boxer who doesn't know how to fight mixed martial arts style fighting, in a cage against the guy who's going to do something other than throw punches. No disrespect to Ray Mercer, but he's not a mixed martial artist. Kimbo, on the other hand, is a street fighter who came out and looks like he trained MMA for a couple months, and probably was more than Ray Mercer did. And now EliteXC has signed Kimbo and Tank Abbott to a fight in February, and I'm disgusted. First of all, if you want to market Kimbo Slice and you want to market him as a legitimate mixed martial artist, put him in there against somebody who has somewhat of a ground game, who's not 40 years old and drunk, and Tank Abbott is the one fighter who has a name but who can't fight anymore, and he fights the exact style that Kimbo Slice wants to fight. A guy who doesn't have much technical ability and is more of a brawler, and sometimes he'll knock you out. More than likely he'll get knocked out these days against any MMA artist worth his salt. So I think it's a total publicity stunt. It's getting away from what the UFC and Pride Fighting Championship had been doing for the past 6-7 years, which is trying to get away from the street fighting aspect of the sport and go back to the sport element of fighting. Get away from that, the ghetto backyard shit, which is what Kimbo does. Yeah, Kimbo is a tough dude. He could beat me up. He could beat you up. But a world-class fighter with some size, he's gonna get tooled around, in my opinion. And EliteXC is not, they're bringing him in to make money, which that's what's going to happen with these smaller organizations. But they're going away from what MMA is supposed to be. This fight is going to be shit. It's going to be two guys standing up, swinging for the fences, and yeah, I think Kimbo is probably going to win. A lot of you probably think Tank's going to win. At this point in his career, I haven't seen Tank in a good fight in years. And Kimbo's a badass. Now, I'm not trying to take away from Kimbo's street prowess, as a guy who can go out there and beat people's asses. But he's not a mixed martial artist on any world-class level. And if he is, he has to prove me wrong and fight a guy who knows how to do something other than stand up and punch. And even not really that well anymore, like Tank Abbott. So the bottom line is, what I really feel is that they're using Tank Abbott's name. They want Kimbo to win the fight, and then all of a sudden now he's a big money draw for them. I would love to see him in the UFC against, you know, yeah, he wants to be so tough against any of the top 10 heavyweights in the UFC. Even some of the light heavyweights in the UFC would just destroy Kimbo, in my opinion. Again, he's a badass. I'm not taking away from that. I would be scared shitless if I was in a room with him, but I'm really disappointed in the way the smaller organizations are going and falling for this guy. With that said, people can use Brock Lesnar, but Brock Lesnar is he's a world-class wrestler, so, he doesn't apparently have much of a game besides that, according to Tim Sylvia at least, but, it's a little bit of a different situation. Brock Lesnar's got a little more of an amateur, or a lot more of an amateur background, and, we'll see. He's being pushed in a little bit of a similar light, which I'm not really too happy about either. The whole, giving a first-time fighter a main event. Well, he had one other fight in a smaller organization. So basically, I'm just making this video to voice my displeasure at EliteXC. I think it's shameful what they're doing, and, that's just my opinion. I guess, leave your opinions. I'm sure a lot of you disagree with me, but I just think it's a circus act, and it's bad for mixed martial arts. So I'll be back with my with my UFC 80 predictions in next few days. Alright, thanks for watching. Take it easy. Peace.